All right, so it's been about 65 hours now since the Luka and AD trade was announced, and it still makes no sense at all. Actually makes less sense than it did on Saturday night, because at least when I first heard about it, after I had figured out that it wasn't some fake April Fool's joke or somebody hacking into Sham's account on Twitter, my first thought was Luka or AD or both must have wanted this deal to be made. Like they must have forced this to happen. In this player empowerment era, we rarely see stars traded, at all, other than when they are the ones that are forcing their way to a specific team in a lot of cases. Honestly, AD was one of the pioneers of that in the more recent era of the NBA. But yeah, since the time has passed, since the deal has been made, we have learned that that is not even the case. Neither of these players even knew, supposedly, that this trade was in the works at all or even a possibility. The rest of the league had no idea. Apparently, all the other GMs across the NBA are pretty mad, understandably, that they did not know. They were completely unaware that Luka Doncic was available to be traded. I don't even really think AD was very available. There was some talk of AD being moved, but that people were looking at that as like, oh, wow, that's a crazy idea. That'll probably not happen. But it was just like a fun thought experiment to think about, oh, what could the Lakers do if they trade AD? Maybe. Little did anybody know that he would be moved, and it would be for Luka Doncic, who obviously is on no one's radar to ever be traded because he's one of the most untradeable assets in the league. Literally him, Jokic, and Victor Wembanyama, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's probably the top four right there. Like that's a play. It's a non-starter in a conversation about a trade, but yet the Mavs offered this to the Lakers. It's the reporting around it anyways. A couple weeks ago, apparently the Mavs reached out to the Lakers about this. There's so many details, so many things about this that is so wacky and confusing, but looking at the return that the Mavs did get for Luka Doncic, they got Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick from the Lakers in 2029. And they gave up Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris, I believe. In an era where anytime there's a trade, even for not really a star, there's picks being swapped, there's actual pick swaps being exchanged, this deal is completely void of that. I just don't understand how you move one of the most valuable contracts in the league. You move that for one that is in an entire class below, which like as the classes escalate in terms of player contracts at the very top, the gap gets immensely wider. Like there's so much of a gap between the class of player that Luka is in terms of his value as a contract because of his age and potential and what he can do on the court and team roster construction, all those things. There's such a wide gap between him and where AD is. AD is like the 10 to 15th most valuable contract in the NBA probably. Luka is the third. Maybe second, maybe, who knows, maybe first. Victor Wembanyama isn't the absolute surest thing. I'll probably put Victor first, though. I'll concede that point. But still, this is just absolute insanity. I don't understand it. I don't know how somebody can convince themselves to make this kind of move. I don't care about his conditioning. He could have been he could have been on hard drugs. He's made 5 first-team All-NBAs in his 6-year career. He's 25 years old. He elevates his play in the playoffs. He controls the ends of games in the playoffs. You give him all of the money that you possibly are allowed. The rumor going around is that the new owners or somebody in the Mavs circle doesn't want to pay Luka that Supermax deal here in a couple summers. It's like, these owners are new, but that's very much a part of being a basketball owner is there's some players alive that deserve a Supermax deal because that's the top of the spectrum. It's a grading scale. So there's got to be some people in the highest elite class of players, right? Luka Doncic is unarguably in the very middle inner circle, of that tier. If you're not going to give Luka Doncic the Supermax, who will you give the Supermax to? And I understand the health concerns somewhat, that it's like makes it maybe a little bit more shaky than like a Jokic. The way that Nico Harrison and the Mavs front office have talked about this trade in the aftermath for their reasonings of doing it, they're talking about Luka like he's Zion, or Joel Embiid even. Zion's probably the worst example of that, but like Luka's not either of them. I get he's not the most healthy. He's not always available, but he's sure as hell on a completely different level than those other guys who get paid supermax money and their teams have not traded them. And on top of that, he's also proven what he can do in the playoffs, even though he's struggled with injuries here and there. Joel and Zion, for that matter, we haven't seen Zion play a literal playoff game. He's not played in a playoff game. Joel Embiid has had a very, very checkered, mostly negative playoff track record, and he's been injured for a lot of it, but he's played through the injuries and whatnot, which same for Luka. Luka's been injured, struggling with some kind of injury, like literally every single playoff run he's been in. He's had something that's been hampering him, that he's been nursing along, playing through. And he's still one of the best players on literally the top 3 or 4 best player in the postseason, probably even higher than that, at least third since he's been in the league. I don't understand. I just don't understand. I think he's probably second, actually, for what I was just saying. The best players in the playoffs since he's come into the NBA. I think he is second, behind only Nikola Jokic. I would definitely put him above Giannis, to be honest. Giannis has had some major flops. Wow. I'm sorry. I still can't believe this, but this is a recording that I'm doing for an intro on a podcast episode that I already have recorded. So there's that. This isn't going to be super long. This was just like me wanting to acknowledge the insanity that has taken place in the NBA world and just the world in general. I feel like the entire earth became about this for the past day or two. Everything that I've interacted with, this has been a part of it in some way. I feel like this has not left my mind since it happened. I was out door dashing on Saturday night when this news came out. I got a text, actually, in a group text with my co-host, Jacob Roth, and another one of our friends. And our friend said, "Ain't no way the Mavs just traded Luka for AD." I opened that, looked at it, and didn't even consider the possibility of that being true. My mind went straight to, okay, this is a prank. But then for a second, I just thought, but it just doesn't feel like he is pranking us, because I know this, this is my friend. This isn't something he would come up with to prank us with. It just feels like he would want to use something that's more believable. So that, this reverse psychology type thing started confusing me. And so then I went and just looked at Twitter just to check to see if, maybe there's something fake going around that he saw and maybe believed, or he saw and then is trying to get us to see if we can believe it by, saying it's real. And so I went looking for that, didn't see anything at all. And then I just went to Sham's page because I was like, if it's going to come from somewhere and it's real, it's going to come from Sham's. So I looked that up and there it is. Most recent tweet, literally 2 minutes before I looked at it, it was posted. And obviously in the replies, everybody was thinking he got hacked. And so then I was still under the assumption that something weird is going on. What's happening right now? A lot of people, even looking at the details of the trade, were if you wanted to make a fake Luka for AD trade, it wouldn't look like this. You should have thrown in pick swaps and, more draft capital, more young players. They should have gotten at least Austin Reeves or Dalton Connect or, something like that. But no. It was real, and Shams had to quote tweet his original tweet saying, "No, this is real." And then, people still thought maybe the hackers still logged into Shams' account. And so then Bobby Marks, I believe, another ESPN NBA insider, had to quote tweet that tweet again saying, "No, this is actually real. This is really happening." And it wasn't until that I was like, "Oh, all right, this is legit." It's just insane to me. You never trade Luka Doncic. You don't maybe if he was 31 like AD is and somehow has not won a title yet or an MVP or anything in this thought experiment and still only has 5 first team All NBAs or whatever and has just been struggling to stay up, then maybe you make a deal like this. But he's 25 years old. And he just took your team to the finals after missing the playoffs the year before and also being a terrible defensive team for the first half of that season last year. You built a competent defense around him and it became one of the best defenses in the league. And Luka became your offensive engine just on the other end, with Kyrie supplementing. That was a good formula. It was a terrible matchup going against the buzzsaw of the Celtics, but you made it all the way through the Western Conference and your star player is only 25 and wants to be there. He cried, apparently, when he found out about the trade. He had just bought a $15 million house in your city. A week before this, he closed on that house. He had no idea this was coming. He said after the trade, after finding out, he thought that he would be in Dallas his entire career. Your fans, there's not there's barely any other player to fan base relationship as special as this one. Your fans all rally around him as the face of your franchise, of like the next Dirk. And you trade him when you don't need to at all. And the other part of this is, even if you were to be a completely dumb person, if you just wanted to be dumb, let's say that, do make one dumb mistake in that you're entertaining the idea of trading Luka because you don't like that he can't stay healthy and you just want something more consistent, like AD, complete picture of health, which is just another ironic thing about this. But let's say that you've talked yourself into trying to trade Luka. Why would you make a secret deal in the middle of the night? Only talk to one team about it. Like you're only going and talking to one team, obviously not bartering all that hard, because I cannot imagine Rob Pelinka having the balls to be like, you're asking for both of our firsts down the line. No, I'm actually going to take one of those out of there and, negotiate it. Like I could not believe doing that when you're being offered Luka Doncic in a trade. Like I would be like, yeah, I would be so afraid of losing this offer and having them take, the discussion to another team to see if they can get some better. I would just say yes to whatever they were offering me. It's just insane to me. How does that happen? I don't even remember where I was when I started it. I feel like I started leading into a point that I was making. But yeah, let's say that you're dumb enough to convince yourself to try to trade Luka. Why would you make a secret deal with just one team instead of shopping them around? Like you should announce to the world that this person is available so you can get an insane amount of that. You can start a bidding war. It would be the biggest haul of any player, like any trade for a star in NBA history. This would be, if you properly went about that process, like every other star that's been traded has gone through that process. I don't understand. I don't know if it's Nico Harrison was afraid of, in this player empowerment era, when players decide like, oh, it's time for us to part ways, me and my team, then they get all the control. They decide where they want to go, basically, by publicly doing all these things. I don't know if he was afraid of Luka finding out about their ideas to trade him because they didn't want him to get any leverage. But it's like, the reason why you don't want to let him get leverage is so he can't force his way somewhere and take your leverage away from other teams. And therefore you end up with a dampened return. Your return is not as potent as it could be. If that's what you're afraid of, you literally just did that worse to yourself than if you shopped him. Even if he made a big fuss about it, became a drama like the Jimmy Butler situation right now. Even if it became like that, you would still be able to get more value than this. And that is why, literally, the leading theory in my mind right now, the only way I can see this explained in a way that makes some sense, is that the NBA manufactured this in some way. Like they made this deal happen because the Lakers are their golden child. That's like their cash cow, that's globally, that's the biggest brand in sports, really. Like every country, probably the leading team in popularity, other than maybe Serbia, I guess, and Greece. I don't know, like a couple of countries here and there. It's the Lakers. Like that's the favorite team of like literally every country across the world. And they're maybe afraid of, this Luka and AD era. They're kind of stuck in the middle. They don't have a great team around those guys, and those guys aren't young enough or at their peaks enough to carry it to absolute mountaintop. And also the league is just at a way more competitive level than it has been throughout history, that just having two top 10 guys doesn't make you an automatic top 4 or 5 team in the NBA because of how much parity there is. They look at that and they think, well, the Lakers, just like several times in history, they need to not really stumble into, but they need to luck out and find their next phase. Find their next face of the franchise, their next era of Lakers stardom, of Lakers dynasty, if you will, really. And if you're going to pick from a hat, not pick from a hat, but pick literally any player in the league, somebody to usher in the new era after LeBron, to make that seamless transition, become the next face. This literally is the first pick in the NBA for that because of how similar he is to LeBron and his his brand and his stardom. Like that's so perfect. Victor would probably be the other pick just based off of a pure basketball talent standpoint, but Luka is oftentimes compared to LeBron. It's like one of his biggest player comparisons. LeBron was his childhood icon, so that just makes sense, obviously. honestly, that you would get Luka to the Lakers just as their the most recent superstar, super duper star that basically just falls into the Lakers' lap. It happened first back in the late 60s with Wilt Chamberlain. Then it happened again with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the 70s, and then again with Shaq in the 90s. And then honestly, even with Pau Gasol, when the Lakers were a not very good team, they were struggling with just having Kobe as their only real star on the team and not a lot around him. And then, somehow the Lakers pull off an eerily similar trade to this at a much smaller scale, because Pau Gasol was like a top 10 player in the NBA, not top 3. And 10 was on the higher end, I feel like, probably, but he was probably around there. And the reaction afterwards from all the other teams was like, when did this happen? Like, we didn't know that Pau Gasol was available. How did the Lakers just get Pau Gasol for not very much? It's very similar to this. It's like the NBA orchestrating things to be like, all right, the Lakers need a little juice. They need a little something. This is more than a little juice. This is like league, not even league, like sports world defining type of, it changes like the effects of sports on the world, not just like sports. You get what I mean? Like, this is that big of a deal. Like, I don't know how else to explain this other than it's either that the league paid like an exorbitant amount of money to the new Dallas ownership group and said, we're going to get Luka, we're going to take him from the Mavericks, and we're going to give you AD, and we're going to put Luka in Los Angeles because that's just better for the league as a whole. We'll all make more money, trust me, and we will directly pay you, as if you still have Luka, essentially. You're not going to lose out on all those jersey sales. You're not going to lose out on all those playoff tickets, seats, being sold, all of those things. We're going to get you some compensation so we can all make some more money here by putting Luka, optimizing his brand, putting him in LA, and optimizing the Lakers brand moving forward, because they'll still be relevant after LeBron's done. If the league was capable of making that happen, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they do that? Wouldn't they want to do that? At least that is a pretty solid explanation for all of this. It seems like it's either that or Nico Harrison is just off the henny. He's going through something right now. Probably he needs to be checked into an insane asylum. Like, he is just a madman, like a 9-year-old running an NBA team. He's either completely lost his mind or he has always been mentally inadequate to do this sort of job, but somehow has failed his way into, he's been a broken clock. That's right. Almost every single time so far. All the moves he's made have been pretty good looking back on them, even though, like, especially the Kyrie one, I did not like it at the time. A lot of people didn't like it at the time. It worked out. So yeah, it's either Nico Harrison has no idea what he's doing and it's just coming out now. It's just finally starting to show itself, or that the NBA has orchestrated this. Those are the only 2 theories I have. Unless there's something really crazy that Luka had going on health-wise that they found in some sort of physical examination. But that would also be against the rules, because you can't hide. Like, if it's something that would be able to be found in procedural physical exams, then the Lakers would have caught it, obviously, before the deal goes through. But even if they do find something, do you just say, no, take Luka Doncic back? Like, that's what's so crazy about this. It's like, even if he has some questionable health concerns or conditioning concerns, he's Luka Doncic. And he's accomplished all of this already with those things. Really. So it has to be something that's a new problem. If there is some sort of problem that motivated them to do this. Because I'm not buying Nico Harrison saying, oh, we really want defense. Defense wins championships. And we want to get a great defensive player in Anthony Davis. It's like, he's not going to be getting any better at defense moving forward. I mean, he's 31 years old. And he's going to be also your best player on offense, probably, unless Kyrie. I mean, it's going to be him or Kyrie on offense most of the time, obviously. And like, you're a better defense? Yeah, probably. Yes, you are a better defense. But at what cost? At what cost? Once you had your team fully realized, after the trade deadline last season, is this all because they let Derrick Jones go? If they didn't let him go in the offseason, would the Mavs still have Luka Doncic? Because if we're going to buy Nico Harrison's explanation that their defense isn't good enough, a big part of why their defense is not as good as their top 3 in the league defense that they had last year entering the playoffs is because Derrick Jones isn't there, to be quite honest. And there was not a real reason they let him go for pretty cheap and opted to sign Klay Thompson. I don't think that's the reason why we're at this point, but I'm just entertaining that based off of what Nico has said. I just can't believe it. I'll end this intro here. It's been quite a while, pretty long one. I'll end it just by saying this. I would have never guessed in a million years that Dwight Powell was going to be on the Dallas Mavericks before Luka Doncic got to Dallas, and that Dwight Powell would still be on the Dallas Mavericks after Luka Doncic was no longer there. After Luka's tenure in Dallas had ended, Dwight Powell is still on the team. Obviously, that's not the important detail about all of this, but that as like just something for your brain to chew on. Dwight Powell was the longest tenured Maverick, and he has continued to be the longest tenured Maverick. Luka will never pass him. Luka's not ever gonna pass him like I thought it's just funny looking back, because at one point I was doing an episode or a video or something looking at the most tenured player that's been there the longest on each NBA team, and all of them was like their star. Nuggets is Jokic, Lakers is LeBron, so on and so forth. And then you look at Dallas, and it was Dwight Powell. He's just somehow been able to stick around since 2014 or whatever he's been here since. But just looking at that in my mind, I think, oh yeah, that's weird. That's funny right now, but obviously sometime soon that's going to be Luka. Nope, that will never happen. That day will never come. And that's just sad. I'm not a Mavericks fan, but I feel bad. My heart hurts, to be honest. Like, this made me sad, this move, because I'm like, how can you be so out of touch with your community, your fan base, the people that give you the platform, the job that you have, the position that you're in. And like, I'm just removing the basketball from the conversation, which is like, also, when you just look at the basketball of it, never make this move. That's dumb. Don't do it. But also, when you think about culture, fan base, community, like, those things they'll never be the same. You affected an entire market, an entire, community in a way that is irreparable. Like, it's just true. I mean, obviously, there's still going to be Mavericks fans in 5 years. There will be people that have gotten over it, for sure. There's also lines of fans that have been cut off, and they're never going to come back. Like, that's just a fact. And that's just crazy. It's just wild to me. There's not even a good reason for it. And you're still willing to cause all that harm. But yeah, hopefully we'll get Jacob back in the fold soon so we can get his thoughts on that. Obviously, there have been other trades, seeing as it's deadline week, like Fox and Levine and all. I'm not going to talk about any of it. I just wanted to acknowledge this here at the top. Thank you for listening. Please enjoy the episode. I'm going over my sub all-star teams. Have fun with that.